Hi, kids. Welcome to 008 podcast for Ask the $50 Billion Man, which is me, and that's $50 billion that I've created in the last little over 20 years in equity and value with my mentees and in various projects around the world. Too many projects and too many industries and too many places around the world to mention. Our first question for today's podcast is going to be another one from the toll-free number. You guys are catching on to use it, and I'm trying to use, going forward, at least one question for every podcast. Even if we don't use it in its question format from the actual phone call, we do answer the questions. Okay, let's get started with the first question.
To be wealthy, one has to add value to others' life or lives. How can I successfully add value to someone else's life without trying to impress them or going overboard, without losing my own dignity and self-respect?
That's a great question, but it's based on the political correctness of the 21st century, or more importantly, 2014. In the 60s, 70s, or 80s of the last century, last millennium, that kind of question wouldn't be as important. You impress them, if that's not really the right word, you show them who you are through your mentor, stroke chairman, stroke dream team members, board members, through your accounting firm, through your law firm, that are all part of your dream. There's nothing losing your dignity whatsoever or your self-respect. I must admit that sounds like a person that needs more self-esteem, needs more self-confidence. There's nothing about going overboard in being the best you can be. As Joe Batten, my former partner, and a great mentor of Ross Perot said many years ago, when he coined the phrase, "be all that you can be" for the United States Army, that's what QLA is all about, being all that you can be. I am all that I can be and trying to be the best high-performance coach that there ever lived, that ever walked the planet. And by definition, QLA has made me who I am, and QLA has made countless others. So don't worry about losing your dignity or losing your self-respect. It's a great question. Now let's move on. How do you build a team, and can it be built on commission only? No, you've lost the point here. You build a team, as I told you. You find a mentor, find a chairman. You find other board members that you leverage off of that chairman, hopefully, like an anchor tenant that takes 40% of the building, then you can rent up the rest of the 60%. And it has nothing to do with commission. If you're in a commission business, it has nothing to do with that. By commission, I think they mean, do you have to pay them a fee in the beginning? No, you don't have to pay them a fee. You don't pay them honorariums to come to board meetings. The board meetings are going to be infrequent. And now with Skype and Zoom, etc., which are relatively inexpensive and not free, you can have these board meetings and not have them travel. I would recommend that you have 2 board meetings a year that you're physically present. But in the beginning, if you don't have enough money to have them fly in, or you fly to them, then you have them on Skype. And that's why I recommend highly that your first board, your first dream team, be in the same general locale. My question relates and is a few-fold. This is essentially one question around the chairman. Okay, here we have a multitasker. Should I really have to convince a retired CEO about dealing with such high firms, lawyers, and accountants? No, you shouldn't have to convince him. If you have to convince him, then that means something's wrong. That means he's out of his comfort zone. And it's not for you to help the CEO, a retired CEO, to expand his comfort zone. They're there to expand your comfort zone. Should the CEO be able to be open-minded and at least know more than one way to finance a deal? Yes, he should be. But I assume that you're talking about this retired CEO still. But your other team members of your board should also have the experience to be able to tell you what road to go down. And of course, your extended dream team, which are your lawyers and accountants, will also have the ideas. CEO believed and really liked my idea, but in terms of me financing the deal I want, which is how you mentioned on the tapes, he seemed irate, or at least couldn't believe it could be done. Conventional wisdom here again? Right. Next, you got the wrong guy. QLA is not for everybody, okay? If you spend 20, 30, 40 years of your life doing it the conventional way, QLA is going to seem foreign to you. You just have to move on, say thank you very much. In fact, today I got an email from a mentee in the oil and gas business. After a few weeks of a Dream Team member being on board, the Dream Team member felt so uncomfortable that he said, this isn't for me, and so he left. That's life. Danger is real, but fear is a choice. Fear is not real. Fear is a product of your imagination. Remember, false expectations appearing real. These guys are afraid because it's a different way. The CEO, ex-CEO that we've talked about in the last 2 slides. That's not your problem. It's not for you to change his thought process at age 50 or 60 or whatever he is. But remember, fear is a product of your imagination, and fear is just one choice. Another choice, the opposite of fear, is enthusiasm. I'm really bored and tired of daily grind. I need something more exciting in my life. Entrepreneurship offers that. But how do I go about it? I have some ideas like mobile apps, for example. Everybody and his dog's got mobile apps, okay? The truth of the matter, and I have 2 mentees that are very successful in production of apps, but 99.9% of all app producers don't make any money. And they always refer you to the 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 people that do make money with apps. But for the vast majority, it's a very tough thing. And most of you hang on to these bad ideas too long. When they don't work, you should walk away. If the plan is to acquire several companies, this is the same extension of that app question. Several companies, consolidate them to eliminate redundant operations, and then take the organization public with an IPO. When would you recommend doing the second and third acquisitions after the first one, if the deals are available? As soon as humanly possible. Now, if you're referring to apps, you're not going to find too many app companies that are worth buying. But if you're just asking in general, and I'll make this question in general, then as soon as you make your first acquisition, if you've got a second or third, I'm not a believer that you, excuse me, take time to consolidate them. In the beginning, it's going to be hard for you to find transactions until you get a deal flow. And I believe we talk about deal flow later on in this podcast, or perhaps I'll talk about it in another podcast. But there's a lengthy tape on it on my site called Deal Flow, How to Create Deal Flow, and it's germane to this question. But you take the acquisitions as soon as you find them. They're going to be tough to find in the beginning. I'm watching your podcast 4 after a Hyatt brunch. Same question comes to me. You are who you know and what you do. I am beyond all those I associate with, and how to crack the next level of achievement. How do I go, this is all one question, how do I go from having associates who are millionaires to having those that have in excess of 100 million? Sounds like fucking stupid question. He's telling himself that to me. Go and find them. But that is like saying, how do I bang a supermodel? Ask her. Your thoughts would be appreciated. The model isn't about banging anybody. By bang, that means having intercourse, for those of you that don't know what that means. But you're right. You are who you hang around with. I said in a podcast a while back, you show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And again, I've written about countless times, the 5 people that you've been exposed to the most are the people you're most likely going to model. Those people are normally your father, your mother, if your dad's gone, a grandparent, an older brother, older sister. And none of these people are trained to make you or help you associate with high-performance people, let alone be a high-performance person. you need to upgrade your associates. It's that simple. And as Bruce Whipple, my old friend and colleague, would say many, many years in a row, if you don't ask, you don't get. How should I deal with my comfort zone, and how do I break out of my comfort zone? Well, I'm going to sit down on that one. How do I deal with it? Well, I'm going to make some assumptions here. By deal with it, in other words, the lack thereof, a comfort zone. Again, getting back to the slide and the penultimate slide before that, your comfort zone is based upon who you've been around your formative years. I've said on many times in many seminars, and I've written many times, as a Catholic Church, and this isn't an advertisement for the Catholic Church, even though I was raised a Catholic, you give me a child the first 7 or 8 years and I'll have them. Well, your self-esteem is built in your first 7 or 8 years. So who are you normally around your first 7 or 8 years? Duh, daddy and mommy. And that's why you don't necessarily have any self-esteem, because normally your parents don't. I'm not saying anything about that. Your parents loved you. Your mom did the best they could, but that's just the point, the best you could. But that's the best they could based on what they knew. How do I break out of that comfort zone? Again, show me your friends and I show you your future. I learned the regimen of work ethic from my dad, God love him. But when I got a big award in 1981 and I got another big award in 1991 about being Entrepreneur of the Year, etc., most successful this or that, when the TV commentator or newscaster, whatever you call them, asked my dad, aren't you proud of your son's success? And my dad said, looking straight into the camera, yes, I'm very proud of my son's success, but my son is not super successful because of me. He's super successful in spite of me. He meant it in a positive way. He meant it because he wasn't trained to be a high-performance person. He was a world-class athlete at one time, and that's one of the banes of my existence, is the fact that I had very little athletic skills growing up. So that's probably why I overcompensate in business. But he was saying that he only trained me in what he knew. And he then knew at age 60 or 70, how old he was when he said these things, that it wasn't to be a high-performance person in business. He was a high-performance guy, but not in business. So how do I break out of my comfort zone? You need new associates. You need new colleagues. You need a mentor. You need a chairman. You need a dream team. And it ain't easy. It ain't easy to find. It's easier to find those people, but it's not easy to change 20, 30, 40 years of pre-existence in your little brains. But if you want it bad enough, you can do it. I am an international student in Dundee. I assume that means he's not Scottish. Dundee, Scotland. I enrolled in a business course to learn the basics. However, I find it too slow. What do you suggest? Well, you can drop out, and you can build a dream team and go after your passion. If you have a passion for something, go out and do it. But I'm not sure why an international student would come to Dundee. Dundee University, I assume it's Dundee University. It's a great school, but there are other schools that you don't have to come internationally to go to. How can I stay so fired up? How do you stay so fired up during the Castle seminars? Well, I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about bringing as many of you guys and gals across the goal line as I can in the rest of the years I have to keep coaching and mentoring. I love it. Of course, I'm very successful at it, and when you're successful at something, you love it more. But I loved it when I wasn't fucking successful. I loved it when they laughed at me. I loved it when they said QLA was a statistical anomaly. Just because I turned $800 into over 400 million, how could I possibly think that I was going to be able to get anybody else to do it? Well, now I've gotten countless people over the goal line, and I'm not even in the top 10 of success stories of QLA with 450 million bucks, which I'm proud of. And I hope that I'm in the next 10 years, I'm not in the top 100. But I stay fired up because I'm a professional. And as I told the guys in the seminar, last seminar just ended a couple weeks ago, I was not 100% well the first day and a half of the seminar. I was ill. I'm not sure if I had food poisoning, but you sure as hell can't tell it on the YouTube tapes. And by the end of the second day, I was fired up, no more than I was the first day, but I was feeling well. And I wasn't having to call on my inner energy or the force, and I wasn't calling on Juan Kenobi like I was the first day and a half. The first day of the seminar, it was hard for me to get out of bed. And but nobody saw that. Now, if I were you, and I was just a measly cunt, I'd say, oh, I don't feel well. Maybe I will start at 10 instead of 7, etc. One of the guys who's a successful guy in his own right, he's from Indonesia. He came up and managing people in Asia is different. We had a guy there from China. Both Caucasians, but living there a long time. And the guy from Indonesia said, the best excuse I've had in the 12 or 13 years he's been in Indonesia for not coming to work, and I gave him a couple of ones that I've heard over the 10 years I've been in Asia, and he said, well, this one is going to top any of those. And he told me, I asked the sorry bastard, this is him talking, why the fuck weren't you at work yesterday? He says, oh, I was sick the day before. Now get this. Let your little pea brain, the synapses fire. He wasn't sick the day he didn't come to work. He was sick the day before, so he decided he needed an extra day, even though he wasn't unwell. This guy and I laughed and laughed and laughed about this. Now, the other guys that have not done business in Asia for any length of time didn't see the humor in it. But if you've been here, where I've told you, I have a headache, I have diarrhea. The same guy told me the story. We found a guy that his mother died. Except over the years, every time I get a new general manager or senior manager that this guy reports to, his mother dies. So the guy that he's reporting to doesn't know that his mother died 4 or 5 times prior to that. And I said, well, we have guys that their wife's in the hospital or their wife had a baby that have no wives. And so I'm not surprised. But I hope this answered the how do I stay fired up. Just answering the question gets me fired up. How do I stay at home? I almost have no money. How do I stay at home? I believe, because reading in the contents, this was with some other comments, meaning if I have no money, why do I stay at home? Well, you shouldn't. You should be out finding something that you're passionate about. So, if you stay at home and you do nothing, believe me, you'll do nothing. Those that have low expectations, they become self-fulfilling prophecies. Money has nothing to do with it. I had $820. I know people that started with nothing. But $820 is pretty close to nothing. Is there anyone in the group of mentees that are from Dundee? No, there is nobody. We have had people from Scotland through the seminar before, but this last group that we just had, and my current mentees, I have nobody from Dundee. I read a business article called that says stop setting goals and focus in systems. Well, that fucking article is full of shit. Who wrote that fucking article? And the guy that wrote that article is probably an idiot if you read it, if you comprehended the article right. A lot of information I get from you kids on these questions, you take it out of context and then you ask me to fit your own circumstances. So when I answer these questions, they're based on what I read and what I read only. And so the only disclaimer I make is that if you gave me the accurate information based on reality, then my answer is 100%. Okay. How is it that the business leader would not entertain being funded, especially if they are successful? How is it that the business leader would not entertain being funded, especially if they are successful? Okay. Again, I think we have English as a second language problem. how is it that a business leader, a person that you would want to come on your dream team, not entertain, not being funded, but accepting your request? Remember, we don't want these guys for their money. We want these guys for their experience. Many, many times in the last 21 years, people have been asked, my mentees, well, if Dan's your mentor, or Dan is your chairman, or both, or Dan is coaching you, why don't you ask him for the money? And the answer, and I didn't think of this answer, the answer came many years ago by somebody else. I think it might have even been Lucinda Burke. I don't want Dan's money, I want his expertise. I want his time. If Lucinda was the one that came up with that, and I don't recall exactly, that's exactly. I charge 4,500 euros an hour, 4,500 euros an hour for consulting. I price myself hopefully out of the market because I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be tempted to do a consulting gig, although I had one earlier this year, and not spend the 30 or 35% of my time pro bono that I do with the mentees. Remember, I give everything away free except for the seminar, the Castle seminar, because I want you to pay a price. I want to see how many people are willing to put it on credit cards. How many people, because there's a much higher probability of those people being successful if they're willing to put themselves under that stress. But then the 12 months that I mentor you, I coach you, after that is for free. I mean, you kids couldn't afford me. Well, companies can't afford me. Forget the kids. So don't worry about the idea that you're going to have successful people turn you down because they can't get paid. A lot of people thought of you after watching The Wolf of Wall Street. Do you agree? Well, I believe I'm a better speaker than the guy that the movie was about. I know I've been more successful than the guy that the movie was about. I know I'm just as passionate, if not more passionate, than the guy the movie was about. But unfortunately, those things existed. I had already been gone from the Wall Street firm that I was with several years before that particular guy was out there. But I can assure you, I knew of people doing that kind of stuff even when I was there. As far as, do I agree that I am like him vis-a-vis determination, vis-a-vis passion, and all the characteristics of a high-performance person that I talk about? Yeah, I'm like that. But all high-performance people aren't goody two-shoes. Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, Attila the Hun, Vlad the Impaler, and I have a whole list at the castle of a wall of influencers on the left-hand side, the people that influence me in one degree or another. I have them alongside pictures of Christ, Buddha, Mother Teresa, the Pope, Churchill, right next to Stalin. So not everybody uses high-performance characteristics for the good. How do you approach mentors? Okay, it's pretty simple. So on my site, I believe I wrote a newsletter on it back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's in the book. You find somebody that is where you are, where they are now is where you want to be now. Okay? Which means they're seniors to you, not just in business knowledge and experience and acumen, but they've already built wealth. They've already attained a track record. You approach them hopefully through a third party, if that's because a third party referral is always better than a cold call. But if not, a cold call. We have people, as I make this podcast, that have approached high-profile people worth hundreds of millions, if not billions, and at least got an audience, and in many cases got them to be their mentor and their chairman. You go to them, and they need to buy off on you as an individual first, your passion, and your general idea, not your specific idea. They should be geographically close to you. It's not mandatory. They should have something else in common. I've said many times, Jim Newman and I had tennis. Costa Gracios and I had fine food and cigars and wine. And Jerry Orman and I had golf. Because every minute of the day, you're not, it becomes boring for them if you're asking them business questions all the time. Better to say, Jim Newman, when I'm hitting that backhand, should I break my wrist a little? Or how do you think this green breaks, Jerry Ormond? And Costa, do you think that this 1964 Chateau Margaux is worth us drinking? I hope I answered the question, and I'll talk about it in other podcasts. Is there a good reason to give up equity? Yeah, there's a very fucking good reason to give up equity, you dipshits. You give it up to give them an incentive because then they have skin in the game in your dream, in your passion. That's the good reason. With today's low margins in business, how do you apply QLA to manage them? Well, I don't agree with today's low margins in business. This sounds like a guy that's been reading too many books. And I made a big deal on YouTube during the seminar. Reading books are great. Okay. But as Robert Bauer, who's been to the seminar 7-8 times, said, I would rather have somebody that's been involved in 700 transactions and my estimation over 45, almost 50 years in business and 21 years coaching, people that read books don't take action. They read fucking books instead of taking action. That's their excuse to procrastinate. I'm going to say it again. People that read fucking books don't take action. They use that as a reason to procrastinate. There's 8 or 10 books that I've read. I've skimmed maybe 100. And I've read those 8 or 10 books, and I'm not going to list them. I've listed them ad nauseum before. But the first book is Think and Grow Rich. The second book is mine. And I've read my book probably more times than anybody that's watching this. Reread it. What was the lowest point in your life? In recent years, probably the lowest point in my life was my mother passed away Christmas Eve, 2003. After I had not been so kind to her, she had moved to Scotland, and it's one of my great regrets in life. I told my mother, "You're not fucking sick, Mom. You're not going to die. You act like you're going to die." 48 hours, she had gone. So that was probably it. Other than that, all the rest is bullshit. All the rest is bullshit. Why do you keep trying to teach people something that is so easy to do? Fucking Praise Allah. Some of your high performance friends asked you this before. Praise Allah. Fucking man. Yes, they have. Why do I do that? It's a very good question. The answer is because I want, in my lifetime, since I initiated QLA in 1993, to bring as many people across the goal line as I can to fulfill their dreams. Because what I'm doing is, as Mr. Bezos, and I agree on having an 80-year-old regret minimization formula. I want you to have as few regrets as humanly possible by the time you reach 80, or 90 if you live longer. And instead of a trunk or a suitcase this size with your regrets, I want you to have a little purse this size with your regrets. We're all going to have regrets. I'm doing my best to minimize those regrets. And when I do that, just as I have already in the last 21 years, I will be known as the greatest high-performance coach that ever lived. And I want to leave that legacy. And after I'm gone, it's not likely anybody will take up the baton, as they say in UK, or baton, as they say the rest of the world, to carry on with QLA. But that's fine. There's enough written and documented stuff for it to live forever. Kind of like the Bible. And when I hold, the reason why your first 100 million looks like a Bible is because I'm telling you what the Lord knows about being high performance. You are fucking inspirational. Thank you. I certainly will not walk into a bank and say, "Can I get the fucking, can I get a fucking loan?" But as a lady, profanity is taboo. This is a woman asking this. Society is so full of shit. They put labels on everything. I have high work ethics, life values, dignity, but I like to say fuck every now and then. What do you think, Dan? Well, I think it's all right to say fuck every now and then. I mean, and I have a 20 or 30 minute section on aggressive language in the Castle seminar. And there's nothing wrong with it. It means you're passionate about something. If I talked like this and I never used a bad word, I would probably convince many less than I have in the past 21 years. People want to be associated with somebody that's passionate. And even though it's politically not correct for a woman to sound passionate, it's okay. If you are a salaried worker and just put in an hour a day in unpaid overtime, in just 8 years, you would have given a whole year's worth of work for free. What the fuck? He says, question. Is it worth it? Yes. Don't keep track of the clock. And if you are keeping track of the clock, you should leave. Do something else. How to make my enemies recognize the values hidden in me. Well, I wouldn't be so worried about making your enemies recognize the values hidden in you. I would concentrate on making your coworkers, your colleagues, and your employer recognizing the values hidden in you. A crowdsourcing, this is another question about crowdsourcing, becomes a more dominant source of finance, and he uses example Kickstarter. Do you see traditional finance losing its foothold? No, I don't see it losing its foothold. It's just another tool in the toolbox. Do you think crowdsourcing could ever start the next J.P. Morgan? I don't know. Probably not in my lifetime. What criteria do you use for selecting firms you work with? Pretty simple. Obviously, honesty, integrity is a given. The bigger the names, the more I like them. But more importantly, it's every firm, a partner, one of the big law firms, international law firms, told me many years ago, every relationship is only one person thick or thin, and it's really the engagement partner in those big firms. If the engagement partner believes in you, he can make magic or she can make magical things happen. So I look for the individual, not the firm. Thought about this for a while and figured I should go bold and direct after what I want. My question is simply, let me guess, how do I get to the castle free? Let me see. Dan, can I have a scholarship? I like this new, I never used the word scholarship, for the QLA seminar at your castle. It's what I want, so I might as well ask you for it. One must have a definite purpose, and that's my goal. I don't call them scholarships, but we do from time to time pro bonos at the Castle Seminar. We've had priests there, and needless to say, the priests aren't paying full tilt, or in some cases, no tilt. And we have a student program, but you got to be a real student. As I put in my newsletter, you can't be a 40 or 50-year-old person taking one class at a junior college in Mississippi. And we have a PPP, Peña payment plan, which has become very popular in 2014. But you got to qualify. You got to fill out a questionnaire, and not everybody qualifies. So, I don't give out scholarships like that just because you ask for them. What question has not been asked but has a significant impact on the success for QLA method? There have been countless questions that haven't been asked. All of them have impact on the success of the QLA method. But the questions that haven't been asked are germane or pertinent to the individual. QLA is a program that works for everybody if you're passionate and you follow the steps. QLA is not a menu like a potpourri. Well, I have a little of this, I have a little of that, I have a little. That doesn't work. Using any QLA is beneficial. Using all of QLA is massively beneficial, but it's massively disruptive on the way you've lived your life heretofore. So that answer to that question is everyone is different. A question that hasn't been asked could be stem from your lack of self-esteem. A question that hasn't been asked could stem from the fact that you think you're too old. A question that hasn't been asked could stem from you think you're too young. And I can go on and on. Hey Dan, I've heard from a few sources that once you achieve a certain level of success, that you will develop enemies in climbing the ladder of new heights. Is that true? If so, how do you deal with it? And how do you develop any enemy? And have you developed any enemies from your accomplishments? Number one, it's not true. It's how you treat people. I do believe in karma. What comes around goes around. I've tried to be and have been very fair and honest with everybody I've dealt with. You can look on YouTube and there's virtually very, very little bad stuff written about me, and nobody has said that I've cheated them. The only bad thing that you can find on the internet about me is my fiasco in India, where I wouldn't bribe somebody and they closed us down, put one of the business partners under house arrest, and then a few years later the charges were dropped for lack of wrongful evidence. I forget how it's put. All those papers are on Wikipedia. Have I developed enemies? No, not really. There's some people that don't like me, but they're not my enemies, not because I fucked them in business, but they don't like me because they don't agree that the harsh, most direct route between point A and point B is a straight line, and sometimes that straight line is a personal affront to some people. QLA was not developed to hurt people's feelings. QLA was not developed to piss people off. But if the people that are in the line of your road to success that are causing you obstacles, they will feel pissed off if you go around them and or over them. And none of that has certainly kept me from any of my accomplishments. What do I want most? I want as many of you as I can possibly pull, push, punch, kick across the goal line to fulfill your dreams. And in doing that, for me to leave the legacy as the best high-performance coach that ever lived. That's what I want most. What is the best way to surround myself with high-performance business role models if I work from home? Tough. But you can still have high-performance colleagues. I mean, if you do, for example, if you're on the internet and you're part of a virtual office, if the people that you're dealing with aren't returning your calls, etc., don't deal with them. Just before this filming, I overheard a conversation from some of my people that some guy who had an appointment that was supposed to come to our offices decided he didn't want to and he wanted to Skype. Well, he's next. Fuck him. Throw him off. Because if that's any indication, as my senior marketing and project manager, who's a woman, said, he's just a cunt. Now, a year ago or so, she wouldn't have talked that way. But sometimes that word describes people to a hilt. Does the chairman of the new venture need specific industry experience? It's helpful, but not absolutely required. But it's helpful, but not absolutely required. Mr. Peña, I am pleased to find this great opportunity. I'm on the way to start a first business. So many questions. I said to myself, this is it. I wrote on a piece of paper the most important question that my mind could find. When writing it, clarifying answers were coming. And I searched next most important question and answers came, and so on. It happened that no question was good enough for a serious debate with Mr. Peña, because when writing it down, the answers appeared to be ridiculously simple and clear. And I could hear your voice saying, what the fuck? This is a QLA question. Did you think before asking? You Romanian gypsy woman. Obviously, she's a gypsy lady. So I now have an open list of my most important questions and an open self-made list of clarifying answers to my most important questions. In your opinion, will this type of continuity or continuously growing list of clarifying and leading answers take one in the position to be able to offer himself with whatever he desires and someday a Bentley and a similar list of self-made answers to someone? The answer is yes. And what she's saying in a roundabout way, if you write it down, it becomes clear. And if you are reading and following the QLA methodology and all the free stuff that I've told you about for a long, long time, after writing it down, it becomes clear. And or after writing it down and thinking about it for a few minutes or an hour, it becomes clear. But the more sophisticated, or I don't like to use that word, the more knowledgeable about QLA that you get, the more these questions will be answered. What has the best use of your money been to date? What unforgettable experiences have you been able to create due to your great wealth? Well, what has been the best use of your money been to date? Well, some of them I'm not listing them in any particular order. The education of my children and fine institutions. The charities that my wife and I have been able to support over the years, including 2 Mother Teresa orphanages. The Manuel S. Peña student athlete scholarship, college scholarship at Lincoln High School in Los Angeles, where my dad was an all-state athlete. For the last 4 or 5 years, we've sent a number of kids off to college that might not have been able to go. What experience have you been able to create? Well, experiences, I mean, going to the magnetic South Pole to renew our vows, my wife Sally and I, being able to travel all over the world several times a year, being able to experience all the continents, probably 100 countries, being introduced to 3 presidents of the United States, I think 5 members of the royal family in the UK. These are some of the things. But being able to give away all the QLA product and not have to make a living off of it is a great benefit, and it makes me feel very good. What separates me from all the other that I know of, personal development, success coaches, whatever you want to call them, is that I'm not making a living off of it. And I'm not, I could give seminars and probably fill up pretty big rooms, but I don't do that because I know, which I used to, because I used to give these things away in the 90s to big rooms of 700, 800, 900 people, that my effectiveness was okay by industry standards, but certainly wasn't okay by my own standards. I have fire curtain manufacturing businesses in the UK. How did this get in there? So what? Would you recommend asking someone to be a mentor in the same business as you were? And could you possibly be in a direct competition in the future? Well, I don't know anybody in the fire curtain business. And if you ask somebody that's in your business to be your chairman, you take that risk. But you have to be careful that you don't already compete with the gentleman or the lady. As someone who just recently got out of high school with a fantastic computer skills, but not very many business skills, do you suggest pursuing an MBA, or should I just follow QLA and get real world experience? I would assume a great mentor and dream team would help make up for my lack of knowledge, and am I correct in thinking so? Yes, you are. I don't like to tell anybody not to go to school because I know I told my own children to go to school. But we certainly have a lot of examples of people that never went to university, i.e. Steve Jobs, amongst others. And so you have to follow your heart. If your heart is that you found something that you're passionate about now, then you're still young enough to postpone university for a year or two to find out if you really are. If you're not, if you're questioning and you have the ability to go to school, then I'd go to school. Mr. Peña, if you could take the one best character trait from each of your 3 most successful mentees and combine them to make the ultimate high-performance person, what would these qualities or character traits be? I don't even have to think about it, and it's not one from each. It's all the same. Just fucking do it. They all just did it. They listened, followed QLA, and they had faith in it, and they just did it. Doesn't the philosophy, the more you, this is a good question. Doesn't the philosophy, the more you investigate, you'll have less you'll invest, contradict the philosophy instantly decided on if a deal is hot or not? If one instantly evaluates a deal to be hot, shouldn't he go forward with it irrespective of what your investigation reveals? No. Again, consult your lawyer, accountant, your own personal advisors, but no. It's hot or it's not hot. That's when you investigate it. You know, she's walking towards you saying, Dan, I'm single then, I'm young. Dan, come with me, okay? Yeah, I got to investigate this. Now, in the year 2014, I got to worry about, does she have venereal diseases, and I got to think about all this. So that's part of the investigation. So it's either hot or it's not hot, vis-a-vis taking the first step towards investigation. What specific questions should I ask potential Dream Team members during their interview? Okay, well, assuming you have a chairman, it doesn't say here, the questions are, do they have time? Do they know anything about the industry? Do you understand, how passionate I am? We don't want your money. We want your expertise. I'm adding questions and statements. We will give all board members, Dream Team members, a percentage equity based on their activity, which could be from 1% to 2% for just but a board member, and 3 to 5% for a chief financial officer or finance director, and up to 10% for a chairman. I don't do these deals for 10%, and I'm not here to sell you to ask me, but I get a lot more than 10%. Okay. What specific materials do I need ready to present to my potential Dream Team members? He's got listed here. You give him your mission statement. You give him an executive summary of your idea, your mission statement, his profile, meaning the guy that's asking them. All correct. That's all correct. And those are easily put together. Just to be clear, the process is 1, set up a dream team. 2, find a deal. 3, and that dream team includes extended portion of your dream team includes your accountants and lawyers on a success fee basis. Find a deal, find the money, correct? Yes, correct. Or should I have the deal before the dream team so they understand what I'm attempting? No, you don't need the deal before the dream team. You need the dream team first, because that's how you're going to get the deal. That's how you're going to get somebody to have confidence in you, to give you an opportunity to buy a deal, because you're getting the extended track record of your dream team members. At what point is the process do I set up the company, LLC, DBA, corporation? As soon as you put your dream team together, you set up the corporation and issue the equity. I don't like to give the dream team members, the board options. I like to give them direct equity, 2%. In different parts of the world, nobody ever gives them anything. So it's a big deal. Do you think it makes sense to hire a bank? Again, English is a second language. Hire a bank to do my auditing, account management, payroll. No, I don't think it's a good idea to do your auditing, account management, and payroll You should have, and not your dream team member either. Your board guy who's on your dream team, who's an accountant perhaps, didn't come there to do your auditing and account management payroll. You should do that internally or outsource it, but not to your bank. If possible, should it be one of the banks who intend to give me, again, you shouldn't use the bank for that. If I end up needing an angel investor and the current board members are not willing to put up money, they shouldn't put up money, you dipshit. That's not why you asked them there. Should I look for an angel investor using the same method to find board members? Yes, similar method. You won't be saying, I'm going to give you equity to be my angel investor. They'll tell you what equity. Have you ever acquired an entire franchise? No. I've been chairman of an entire franchise before, not just one or two locations. No, I've never done that before. If so, did the acquisition prove to be a significantly different process than others? No, acquiring a franchise is not any different than acquiring a business. But you're going to have existing liabilities because you've got the people that bought the franchises from you, and normally people aren't selling the franchise because they're doing well. So you have to be very cognizant of the liabilities that are coming with a franchise. This gentleman or lady says, my burning desire is to acquire and or start as many daycare centers and private schools as possible. Well, God be with you, Allah be with you, Buddha be with you. That's great. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Do you think there's exponential growth involved in education? Yes, I do. I just mentioned my Chinese example. I personally believe so, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. Have you ever acquired or assisted in an acquisition of an educational institution? Not directly. Indirectly, I have. But there's different kinds of education. Have any of your mentees financed or raised money to start their own educational institution? No. Not to the best of my knowledge. But we're talking about direct mentees. I've got tens of thousands of mentees that only read the book, well, not only, they read the book, have the tapes, CDs, etc. And I know for a fact that they were involved in education, but I wasn't part of that. And to the best of my knowledge, they were successful. But I can't give you any statistics. What are your thoughts on using government funding versus acquisition loan when it comes to owning and operating daycare centers? Well, my general thoughts on government funding is they're absolutely terrific. The governments, and there's all kinds of different methods to utilize government money. And I would go there first as opposed to using individual personal finance. Do you think that a tender, loving approach towards pushing people towards their peak performance is effective as your boot camp approach? And if not, why not? It's not that I get exasperated by this goddamn kind of questioning, but just look how you fucking turned out. Did tender, loving care work with you? If it fucking worked so successfully with you, why the fuck aren't you more successful? It's an oxymoron. I mean, it's not insulting because a lot of people, don't get it. And the second part of the question that I'm not in love with is I don't have a boot camp approach. You would know a fucking boot camp if it bit you in the balls or the crotch if you're a lady. I mean, it infuriates me when all these marketing guys and these personal development guys talk about boot camps. They wouldn't know a fucking boot camp if it hit them in the head with an axe. I mean, I happened to go through 12 months of vigorous, very hard military training. Arguably 6 months of it during my officer training, the best in the world at the time in the 60s. It pisses me off for people to use boot camp. They don't know what the fucking boot camp means. Boot camp, as I told when I was being interviewed by the big talent agency that ultimately decided to take me on, boot camp to me means when they plant you on an anthill and throw honey on you and let you stay there for 10, 12, 30, 40 hours. Boot camp training to me is when they hang you by your thumbs and put battery wires to your fucking testicles. Boot camp to me is when they put you up in a tree and they throw you out, or you slip because of tired you can't hang on anymore, and they've tied a rope to your ankle and you break your fucking leg. That's boot camp to me, kids. So don't insult me as having gone through that training with the boot camp approach. And that's why virtually I don't know anybody that does that I can have confidence in. I mean, call it something else. Call it what it is. The camp's for cunts, pussies, degenerates. And that's why I've been so successful. And that's why my mentees have been so successful. The tender, loving care approach does not fucking work. In the short term, if you've got 10, 15, 20 years to build an organization, it can work. But what I teach you to do, what I drag you across the goal line to do, is to create wealth that would normally take a generation in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. If you want to create it in 20, 25, 30 years, it works. But by definition, QLA is getting to from point A to point fucking B in the shortest possible time. Shortest. Not the boot camp wussy way. Thanks for the opportunity to learn from you, Dan. I have invested 5 years of my time into my business. It's worth 1 to 5 million. Well, if you don't know if it's worth 1 million or 5 million, you got a challenge here. I can continue to grow it without external financing. Your plan could grow it faster, but it is worth the risk and complication to deal with snobbish, know-it-all mentors and herd-like retarded investors. Well, you got a problem, Mr. or Miss. If that's what you think, then don't waste your time with QLA. And if you don't know if your business is worth $1 to $5 million, you're fucked up. Something's wrong with you. You've gone to too many of those wussy, cunt-like boot camps I just talked about. And if you think the snobbish know-it-all mentors, well, the mentors, remember, are people that are where you want to be someday in the future. But you're still a know-nothing. So, I mean, you got the wrong attitude. And herd-like investors, who else would give you money if you don't even know what the fucking value of your company is, 1 to 5 million? Are you retarded? And I don't mean that in a bad way for all the people that have mental handicap challenges. But you got to get your head fucking screwed on straight. Dear Dan, can you comment on being successful in a corporate group and what the difference are to being an entrepreneur? Well, as you know, my corporate all-star success of all time is Klaus Kleinfeld. He's currently chairman and CEO of Alcoa, was CEO of Siemens AG, the 20 or 22nd largest company in the world at the time, who came to me as a middle manager, and 7 years later, he was appointed CEO. He used it to climb the corporate ladder. He used it to be one of the great CEOs of the last 20, 25 years, and he's still one of the great CEOs of the last 20, 25 years. But the basic difference is you have to learn how to use it in the political nature of a large corporation with a lot of bureaucracy. Slows you down a little, but it still makes it possible. If you're my father, and I am 24 years old and have not done business before, and I aspire to be successful like you, what advice would you give me? Well, I wouldn't advise you to be my kid, as my children, God love them, would tell you, and as I wrote in my last newsletter. But because as my daughter would say, God love her, recent graduate from Northwestern, where she got her master's degree and has her first real grown-up job with a Fortune 500 company. It's not easy being Dan Peña's son or daughter. But the advice I would give you is just fucking do it. And for the most part, don't listen to your parents. But if I'm your parent, you should listen to me, or at least take it into consideration in your decision-making process. And just fucking do it. Even if your dad doesn't like it. And if I'm your dad, even if I don't like it. Follow your heart. In order to have an asset in real estate, I must buy cash. How do you turn liabilities into assets? well, I wish I had a box that turned shit into gold, and I wouldn't be doing this. I'd just be selling this. I'm being facetious now. Selling this to all you guys and gals. If I do not have enough income to buy cash. In other words, you're talking about cash flow. You're talking about to buy more real estate, you have to have cash flow. To get your first real estate, you need to do the first deal. As Henry Ford Sr. said many, many years ago, you don't want to say you're talking about it. You want to say that you have done it in the past. Everybody, no matter whether it's real estate, cosmetics, internet, you want to have done your first deal because then you've got a track record. And it's also easier to attract, not also, it is easier to attract money. How can I pay the mortgage while I'm just fucking doing it? Okay, that's how you pay the mortgage, by just fucking doing it. Go out and get 2 or 3 jobs if necessary. People in third world countries understand that better than, the spoiled kids in the Western world. I have mentees that have more than 1 job. What is the best way to bring on board your first Dream Team member when you don't have an ideal track record or other existing members? Your first Dream Team member, or I hope you mean your chairman, has to be sold on you and the general concept. How would you describe a life well lived? A life well lived is when it comes time for you to meet your maker, if you believe in that. Whether it's Allah, Buddha, or Muhammad, is that you have the least amount of regrets as humanly possible. And you can control those because, I'm probably older, a lot older than virtually everybody watching this, and I can be your father or your grandfather. And I know I will have known my life as well lived because I have the fewest regrets possible. I go out of my way to make sure I do things that I won't regret. If you could have dinner with one person, living or dead, who would it be and why? Well, whether Christ was a real person, I'm positive he was a real person. Whether he was the Son of God or not is up to conjecture from a lot of people. I would have liked to have met Christ. I would have liked to have been at his Last Supper. I guarantee I would have been able to tell him that Judas was going to do what he did, sell him down the river. But there are other people that I would have liked to have been around. Not such great, very much luminaries, but not with such great reputations. I would have liked to have met Stalin, Hitler, Mussolini, Vlad the Impaler. I would have liked to have met all the great religious heads, and why? Because it would have been a learning experience. Now, this sounds braggadocious, and I don't mean it this way, but I'm sure I'm going to get some smart-ass emails or tweets about it. When I go into a room of even experienced people, I'm normally more experienced than sometimes the whole room put together. Now, that's not much of a learning experience for me, but if I could have gone back in time, I'm sure I would have learned from these guys. Okay, now, will you help me be all I can be? Well, the way I can help you be all you can be, and this goes for not just the person that sent this question in, but for everybody that's watching this, is for you to listen to and read all my free stuff that I have on my site, for you to go and look on iTunes and YouTube, because now we put some of my old product on iTunes and YouTube, to go to Torrent, for those of you that don't have or don't know about Torrent, which I'm sure everybody that's watching this knew about Torrent before I did. And as I mentioned in a previous podcast, if I'd known about Torrent years ago, I would have put everything up free long time ago. But I didn't. I only recently found out about it. And I thought that Torrent was hit or miss. But there's a lot, virtually almost all my stuff is on between Torrent and YouTube and iTunes. Everything I've got is on there now. But that's the way you can be all you can. I can help you be all you can be. What are the steps to undertake for me to make the first $100 billion man? I'm ready to work on this mission yesterday. Well, thank you very much. I'm already on my way to being a $100 billion man. As I said, we talk about 50 billion because these are people that I can mention the names of, but we're significantly over that already. But I think this gentleman is referring to coming to work for me. And I have a lot of people that want to come to work for me, and I thank you very much for the offer. But I only bring kids on that have gone through the process, and that's the Castle Seminar. And I only do deals with people that I personally trained at the Castle Seminar. Mr. Peña, as you have said, people change only out of inspiration or desperation. Yes, sir, that's correct. While being desperate is a good to let the emotions, I mean in that case, anger as a driving force to have a strong influence over decisions. If so, how can anger be controlled and channeled into the right activities? Its influence gives great courage to get out of the comfort zone. While I believe wisdom in rage from mentor dream team is very important in such situation, it is unlikely to expect such guidance with every single action. That's correct. Your dream team, and especially your mentor, is there to give you wisdom and courage when you need it. I didn't need any courage. I occasionally needed wisdom and anger, and I got that from Mr. Gratsos, Mr. Ormond, and Mr. Newman. But it's not, you can't expect it in every single action. I mean, life, career is a long, long time, and a career is a marathon. It's not individual sprints. So you're right in that regard, but it can be of assistance. Mr. Peña, as far as I know, your QLA system is based on consolidated fragmented industries. Yet I have a business in a non-chaos fragmented industry. Would your system still be able to help me grow geometrically? If yes, how would you grow this kind of business? Okay. Your business is in a fragmented industry, but it's not a chaos ridden. It doesn't have to be in chaos. It's more lucrative if it's in chaos. But even if it's not in chaos or it's not in a fragmented industry, it can help because it will allow you to consolidate small mom and pop companies and professionalize, get rid of redundant systems, processes, and procedures, make one consistent system throughout the acquisition candidates that will become part of your organization. So while it's easier and more lucrative in a fragmented, chaotic industry, it's not absolutely mandatory. If you could take someone under your wing and teach them everything you've learned through trial and error, what would I teach them? That's not a hard question, but it's somewhat perplexing when I get it, because that's what the QLA system is all about. You're learning from my experiences, not just when I took $800 and turned it into over 400 million, but you're learning from my experiences from being a teenager, unfulfilled teenager, grab ass, fuck up, to performing my first high performance act, graduating from OCS, Officers Candidate School in 1967, etc. So you're learning as if you were under my wing. But you need to use the system. And again, it's not a potpourri, it's not a menu. You can't take one or two things off of the list of 25 or 30. You need to do all the things. How can the seminar specifically change the statistical odds of success? Well, I think it's more than statistical odds, because we have a 100% success rate if you follow the process. If you don't follow the process, while you're going to be better off for going to the seminar, you're going to be even geometrically more better off, if that's proper English, and I don't think it is, if you go to the seminar and you follow the process. There's no one that we've had complete the seminar, I should say, that hasn't been more successful in the weeks, months, and years to come post-seminar. How can you attain or get unshakable self-esteem? It's not unshakable. Mine can be shaken from time to time, but not recently. I think I've mentioned in a previous podcast that the last time that I felt unnerved, so to speak, was when I was presented to the Queen, Christ, it must be 20 years ago. I felt dry mouth. I was a little apprehensive, wasn't sure exactly what I was supposed to do, kneel, curtsy, whatever. But the way is you associate with, and I don't like the word hang around, because high performance people are like eagles, they fly alone. But when you start dealing with high performance people that have high self-esteem, it rubs off. But it's not 100% unshakable. Now, certain things that I have 100% unshakable self-confidence in, I engage in dangerous activities. I don't hunt wild animals anymore, but with knives and pistols. But for example, just a few months ago at age 68 and a half, I did a bungee jump in the raging wind in New Zealand when everybody else was standing around talking about it. All the kids that were your age were just sitting around talking about it because it was too windy. I didn't feel, I wasn't afraid. I didn't feel, frightened. I did after I hit the bottom and I heard the snap of the rubber, or whatever that thing is that you jump off of and it's tied around you. I was just making sure that they had tied it off correctly, that it wouldn't break after I made the jump. Today is your last day on earth, and you're leaving a manual for humanity about what to get where you are today without incurring all the nightmares it took you to get there. What 3 things would you include? These are the same things. This is a different kind of question than I answered. I'm not sure if it was this podcast or the previous podcast, but just fucking do it. There aren't 3 things. If you just fucking do it, there aren't 3 things. And you're never going to go through life without incurring the nightmares. The only thing that will reduce the nightmares and the risks and the mistakes that you're going to make are the mentor and the dream team that you acquire in the process of putting your QLA team together. But you can't go through life without making mistakes. That's just not the way life is. All I'm trying to do is reduce your mistakes, and more importantly, not reduce your mistakes, but reduce the regrets you have when it's time for you to leave this earth. And that's why, although I'm not a believer, I know certain religions believe that you come back as something else. It has to do with karma, whether you come back at a higher status in life or a lower status in life. But hopefully when you come back like that, you've learned from your previous lives, or life or lives. You mentioned how self-esteem is developed during early childhood. My son is 2 years old, and I would like your advice on how to properly build his self-esteem. I believe this advice would help other parents listening to you as well. Okay, I told you that, and I spent some time going over it in the seminar. I'm different for 2 or 3 basic reasons. Number one, my self-esteem was built basically by my mother, who not controlled in a bad way, but was responsible for my life the first 7-8 years of life. But there were 3 basic things that she did differently. There's a book by Spock, a famous doctor, child doctor, that was, I think, written in 1946. And it said that do not tell your child no. And my mother never told me no. And coincidentally or laughingly, and having just gone to my 50-year reunion almost a year ago, a lot of kids, gals at that reunion would tell you Dan didn't understand the word no. The second thing is that she didn't allow me to crawl. We didn't have much money, and poor children were equated to be even poorer if they had dirty clothes. So my mother didn't want me to have dirty clothes, so she didn't allow me to walk. So she carried me on her hip until I was able to walk. Some people say that, I was 2, 3 years old before she put me down. But I was connected to my mother at the hip. I was a mama's boy as a little kid. And but the third thing, and I just thought about this in the last seminar, ask yourself, when did you guys stop believing in Santa Claus? When did you stop believing in the Tooth Fairy? When did you stop believing in the Easter Bunny, or whatever the fantasies are? Freud said, look at the average mentality of a happy little child, and then look what he turns into, an adult. Well, my parents, I didn't know there was no Santa Claus until I was about 11 years old. And we asked around the room at the seminar, how old were they? And about the oldest we could get was 7 or 8 years old. And the youngest that we could get was one kid, the 20-year-old kid, who said he never believed in Santa Claus. He always knew, until he was, conscious that he could think that there was no Santa Claus. Okay, well, I believed in Santa Claus until I was 11 years old. I believed, I'm a big dreamer. I believe that anything can happen. I believe that you can do anything you want. I have higher expectations for you than you do. So for the gentleman that's asking me about self-esteem for your children, if that book on Spock is still around, get it. As far as letting your kid crawl, you're probably not as poor as I was as growing up. But being close to mom and mom fulfilling positive role model is very important. And I think it's not bad to allow your kid to believe in fantasies for as long as they can. And be the best role model you can. Most parents are not trained or weren't raised to be role models for high performance. Loving your kid is great. And telling your kid that he can be anything he or she wants to be is not such a great idea. Because unless you give him the tools to be anything he or she wants to be, you're allowing them and setting them up for failure. When the time I meet Dan, I am sure the QLA moment is granted. My question is would you like to meet me and create another miracle spot in someone's life? Well, I want to meet as many people as I want, and I'm often surprised that not more people don't want to meet me when I'm traveling around the world. I met a number of people going through Scandinavia. I normally meet somebody or a few people in every city that I go to. This last trip, where it ended in London, I met a few people in London. In fact, one kid flew in from, I think, Bulgaria. But that's how I touch even more people. But the main reason, or one of the main reasons I see you kids all over, is because I want to keep my thumb on the pulse of what's going on in the real world. Not from what I read, or not from what I hear. And I listen to CNN, BBC, CNBC constantly when I'm home or in a hotel room. But I want to learn and live through your experiences. So I'm living vicariously through you. So that's how I change lives. But if you want to work with me personally, you're going to have to get to the Castle Seminar somehow. I have 2 mentors right now, one teaching me real estate wholesaling and another teaching me Facebook advertising. I know eventually I'll need to focus on something. How do I know what to focus on? How do I know what I'll focus on will have potential to make millions? Well, let me answer the last question first. You won't know that it has the potential to make millions, but if it's in real estate or internet, it has the potential. People have already made many millions before you. But how do I know what to focus on? What do you love? Do you love real estate more than Facebook advertising or the internet? Pick the one that you love the most, that you have the most passion for, and follow your heart. What should I do to keep the feeling of alertness and need for achievement constantly high in my life? Life is a fucking short, as you said, but so often we forget. Yes, life is short, and pretty soon you're going to be 70, like I am, almost, and it's tough, but it's not impossible. If you stay focused on being all you can be every single day, if you measure what you are every single day, today, at the end of the day, did I pass or did I fail? In my weekly reports, I have my mentees grade themselves from 0 to 100. In the beginning, they grade themselves at 80 or 90. And I throw it out and I say that's not acceptable. If you were an 80 or 90, you would need me and you wouldn't have needed the seminar. So we have people after the first or second or third week grading themselves 0 to 10, 1, 25, 40. And that's more reality. Even I don't grade myself probably more than 70 or 75 on any given day. Some days I have 90 or 95, but some days I only have 50. But my standards are a hell of a lot higher than yours. So by your standards, I'd probably be 100 every single day. But I get to accomplish a hell of a lot more than probably anybody watching this or listening to it because I've continued to raise the bar. Hell, I still am raising the bar. Who at almost 70 would get involved with the potential of doing a reality show when 99.9% of all reality shows either don't get off the ground and or fail? Who would consider having to go through the interviewing process, which I've just completed in London, with talent agencies and production companies? Who would do that at my age? Hell, that's what 30, 35, 40-year-old individuals do, not at my age. But I'm continuing to push the envelope. I continue to raise the bar. I continue to take on risks. I don't mind failing. Now, in my particular case, I was successful, but I always presume that I'm going to be successful. And one of the largest talent agencies in the world has taken me on. And the #1 UK independent production company for 2014 has taken me on. But I assume success. I assume success in every meeting I go to. In your books, you advocate setting up as a S-Corp. Okay, those books are old, but with the new entities like the LLCs, series LLCs, LLPs, etc., do you still believe in beginning as an S-Corp? Okay. I like limited liability companies, limited liability partnerships. But for S-Corps still work. S-Corps still work. And the reason I used to like S-Corps, and I still don't dislike them, is because you can easily switch from S-Corp to something else. Dan, everybody believes you have everything in life. What do you really wish to have achieved which is still missing at your life now? I still want to climb Kilimanjaro. Up until recently, I wanted to jump out of the satellite like Baumgartner did last year. And I actually went to Salzburg and I actually looked at the capsule. And I know that I have a way of getting to the Red Bull owner who sponsors it. But I'm too big for the capsule. I'm not saying that's my reason for taking it off my bucket list, but there's all kinds of other things. I wanted to possibly do it on my 70th birthday, but what if the weather's not right? There's too many variables, and so I'm going to have to postpone that, and it's temporarily off my bucket list. Maybe I'll be able to do it on my 75th birthday, or closing in on my 75th birthday. That's one thing. Another thing is I'd like to meet the Pope, and that's more doable than jumping from space 120 miles. But another thing that's on my bucket list and that I'm working on is I'd like to be part of an exorcism. And I just found out recently that the Catholic Church is not the only religion that does exorcisms. Jewish religion has a type of exorcism. But I'm in contact with one of the leading exorcist priests on the planet here, Father Mateo. And he's on a sabbatical right now in Spain, and I hope to start working on that when he gets back in a couple of months. But I'd like to participate, and not all the positions in an exorcism are held by priests. So hopefully I'd be one of the lay persons sitting there. I know you're the devil. The devil will leave your body. And screaming at him. Okay. But that's about it. I've done just about everything else. I'd also like my kids to be as successful as they want to be. I want to be a billionaire. I have strong desire, but I have issues with self-discipline and lack of focus. Well, then you're going to have a hard fucking time. And self-confidence. Well, you're even going to have a harder fucking time. I know what to do, but still don't do it. How do I change that and start kicking ass? You're probably hanging around with losers. I'm not saying your parents were losers. But show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Just because you can say the words doesn't make you be successful. You know, I have constantly am filled with emails with people that say they want to be a billionaire. Well, talk's cheap, kids. It takes money to buy fucking whiskey. So I would start with who you're hanging around with. You've got all the material you need for free on my site to become a billionaire. QLA has produced a number of them. So it's not out of the question. It all gets down to how bad you want it and how much sacrifice you're willing to make. Have you ever helped mentees with severe depression and thoughts of suicide? How can one overcome depression and, again, their passion and zest for life? Well, I believe in getting help, medical help, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I have dealt with people that are severely depressed. I have dealt with people that have attempted suicide and still contemplate suicide. And you can, with medical help and medication, overcome that. I'm not a doctor, and we should probably put this in part of my disclaimer, but you need help, so get it. The last question I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to give you a little epilogue, is how do you get your head screwed on straight from all the things I've said already in this podcast. Read everything that I've mentioned. My free stuff on site, torrent. You show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. But more than anything, stay focused, stay laser beam focused, stay viciously laser beam focused, and you can accomplish anything you want in life. I look forward to the next podcast. And until then, and please follow my plight of trying to get my reality show to fruition. But peace, God bless.